Hello class, and welcome to section 2.2, which focuses on point-slope form. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to write and graph equations in point-slope form. So as we've been discussing so far in chapter 2, there are many different ways that we can write out a linear equation, and this is our second option, which is called point-slope form. So our formula, y minus y1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x1 is the general equation. This m value, just like yesterday, stands for the slope. So we're still using that same idea of m stands for slope. This y1 and x1 come from a point on the graph. So y1, x1, just like you use y1, x1, or excuse me, x1, y1 in your slope formula. So when you have a completed equation, it would look something like y minus 7 is equal to 1/2 times x minus 3. Something like that. So there's an x and a y in the equation. The y1, the m, and the x1 are all going to get replaced by values. So first we're going to talk about how we can graph in point-slope form. When we do this, our first job is to figure out what the slope is. So we look at this and we see that our slope in this case is negative 2/3. Then we want to go ahead and look at our point. So when I come over here and look at the x value, it says plus 1. If you recall a minute ago, it said minus in our equation. So what this means, because it's plus, is it means minus negative 1. So that x1 point is negative 1. Then we come over here and we're subtracting 3, so our y1 point is at 3. That is where our graph is going to start. So we're going to go 1 to the left and up 1, 2, 3. That is the point that is on our line that we can pick out from this equation. Now from there, we want to use our slope, which says to go down 2 and to the right 3. It could also mean go up 2 and to the left 3. Either way, we're going to end up with points on the same line. Just like the last one, we're going to want to connect our points using a straight edge. So we're going to want to continue as we go through the graph and have our straight line going through our points. Remembering we want it to go through the entirety of the graph, and we want to put arrows on the end to symbolize that that line goes on forever and ever. Go ahead and try graphing this one on your own. As we graph, we pick out our point, or excuse me, first we pick out our slope, which is slope of 1/2, and then we look at our point, and we have minus 3, which gives me a positive 3 for x, and the plus 2 gives me the negative 2 for y. So we've got our point 3, negative 2, and then we go up 1 and over 2 for that 1/2 slope. Another thing that we can do is when we are given a slope and a point, we can write the equation for the point-slope form. So we've got our m value, which is our slope, and our x1 and our y1 value coming from the equation. So your job now would be to say y minus your y1 point, which is negative 2, equals your slope of 1/2, which is x minus your x1 point. We simplify this minus a negative to y plus 2 is equal to 1/2 times x minus 3. And that is how you would write the equation when you are given the information. Go ahead and try writing this one on your own. We plug in our slope, our x1, and our y1, and we end up with y plus 3 equals 5/7 parentheses x plus 6. We can do the same thing when we are given 2 points. We're just going to have to take the extra step of finding our slope. So we've got x1, y1, x2, y2. So our first job is to find our slope. So I'm going to do y2, which is 3, minus y1, which is negative 1, over x2, which is negative 3, minus x1, which is 2. 3 minus negative 1 gives us a positive 4, and negative 3 minus 2 gives us a negative 5. So our slope is going to be negative 4/5. Then when we plug into our equation, I've got y minus y1, which is negative 1, equals m, or our slope of negative 4/5 times x minus x1. Remembering to simplify that double negative to a positive. Now, we have 2 points, so your other possible option, if you decided that this was going to be your x1 and y1 value, you could also write the equation out as y minus 3 equals your same slope of negative 4/5 times x minus negative 3, which turns into x plus 3. So you can use either of the 2 points to write out your equation. Go ahead and try this one on your own. When we do this, we find that our slope is going to be 1/2, and then using our first point, we get y minus 4 equals 1/2 parentheses x minus 5. Using the second point, we get y minus 1 equals 1/2 parentheses x plus 1. Again, you can use either point as part of your final answer. Last thing we're going to go through is a couple of word problems. A printing company has graduation invites. The total price of their printing job includes the cost per invitation and a one-time setup fee. What would the cost be for to print 60 invitations? So our job here is to use our given information in order to find a slope, which is one of the values we need. We only need to pick out 2. I'm going to pick the 2 smallest ones. So I'm going to say this is my x1 and my y1, my x2 and my y2. So then doing my slope, I'm going to have 140 minus 100 over 50 minus 25. When I do that subtraction, I end up with 40 over 25, which can simplify down to 8/5. So that's going to be my slope. Now, I need to write my equation in point slope form. I'm going to use my smaller point. Y minus 100, which is my y1, is equal to my 8/5 times x minus 25, which is my x1. So I found the slope, and I've now created my point slope equation. The problem is asking us how much it would cost to print 60 invitations. Invitations are our x value, so my 60 is going to go in the place of x. So I've got y minus 100 equals 8/5 times 60 minus 25. Now we are trying to solve for our variable, so we're going to go ahead and solve what's in the parentheses. So I've got 60 minus 25, which is going to give me an answer of 100 is equal to 8/5 x times 35. Then I'm going to go ahead and keep solving on that side. When I do that, I'm going to do 8/5 times 35. So I get y minus 100 is going to equal 56. And to finish solving this equation, I'm going to need to add 100 to both sides. And when I do that, I end up with a final answer of $156. So I found my slope, created my equation, and then plugged in the information that they asked us about into the equation to solve the problem. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Once we solve, we first find our slope and find that that value is 12. So then I went ahead again and used that smallest point to write my equation. Y minus 725 is equal to 12 parentheses x minus 50. We plug in that given information that we want 75 people to attend, continue to solve, and find that the cost will be $1,025. Since she budgeted $1,200, yes, she does have enough money to cover the party. If you have questions about this or anything else from the lesson, please let me know when you get to class.